Hello everyone, welcome back to Purple Rose Crafts. Today we are working on this awesome sweater. It is a very simple stitch and done with lots of single crochets to make all of our border sections and this beautiful textured stitch. This sweater is super warm and just awesome. This one is done in a child size. My daughter is 10, and so this was made to fit her. And we even added a hood, which you can add or leave off depending on your preference for the sweater. So this one is nice and simple and can be worked in 5 rectangle sections. So we made the front 2 panels, the back panel, and 2 sleeves, all in just rectangle sections. Then we put it all together and add the hood and our collar section at the end. I also added a little pocket. You can add this if you want to or leave it off. And all of the sizes up to XXL will be included on the screen, so that way you can modify your rectangle sections to make this sweater fit for the person that you want it to fit on. All right, so let's jump in. All right, and so to get started with each of our panels, we are going to make a back piece, 2 front pieces, and 2 sleeves. And for each one, we're going to start exactly the same way. The only difference is going to be the width of our initial ribbing section for each of the panels. We're going to start with 11 chains. And so we work our way back with single crochets for the first row. So each row is going to have 10 single crochets on it. And then at the end of each row, we chain 1, turn our work. Our first single crochet on this one, we're going to use back loop only. So back loop there. To do back loop single crochets, we see our front loop here, our back loop here. And so we're just going to catch that back loop. And that's going to give us that ribbed texture that we're looking for. We always start with 11 chains, 10 single crochets, total of 10 stitches on each row for the ribbing. That's our back loop single crochets. This is the front panel for the size of sweater that I'm making. All right, so now we need to start working our way up the actual fabric. So we start with a single crochet, and then we're going to work our way across the top of the ribbing to single crochet all the way across. This is a great pattern to try, and it's nice and beginner friendly because you're going to be sewing everything together at the end. Okay, so there's our row of single crochets sitting nice and flat. And now our pattern row, and this pattern row will basically be the same all the way along. We have a chain as our first stitch, 2 double crochets into the base of the chain, then we skip 2 stitches and then we're going to work our repeat now into the 3rd stitch, single crochet, double crochet. And then we skip 2, 1, 2, and work into the 3rd, single, double, all the way across our row. Now if we need to make an adjustment at the end of the row based on our number of stitches left, we will do that. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left, so we're going to work 1 into the second one this time, and then finish with a single crochet at the end of the row. Then we chain 1 and we repeat our way across, working into all of the single crochet stitches from the previous row. Okay, there we go. All right, so when we are finished, our panel will look like this. All this nice pretty texture. This is a front panel as well. I've already finished the first one, and we have our, so this is the appropriate length for the size sweater that I'm making, and I kept this top, I kept this piece really long because each panel has a single crochet row across the end before we sew them together. All right, end of the row. And then we're going to pull this all the way through. And again, this part is really long because we're going to use it to sew it to the next piece. All right, if you find that your single crochet row here at the top goes a little bit, you know, wonky, like it starts to sort of get 3D instead of laying flat, you can do some single crochet 2 togethers. This is our back panel. I put a stitch marker at the center. Now you can choose whichever side you like better when you're sewing them together, it doesn't matter. But like that. And then this is our sleeve. So this one gets folded in half like this. And then it gets sewed on here like this. And so we sew our side here, our top here, same thing on the other side, and then around the sleeve, and that'll give us our sweater. And then we're going to add the ribbing. We're going to add the ribbing here from the bottom to the inside as well. So it'll go around the collar. So I'll show you guys that once we're at that point. But take your darning needle and start sewing the 2 sides together. Now keep in mind, normally when we sew stuff, you sew from the right sides together. So I encourage you to do that. And then we'll turn everything the right way out. Same thing with the sleeve. You're going to sew up the inside like this and then turn it the other way. So you're going to turn it inside out. All right, so that's our sweater. We're going to go ahead and sew those together, and I will be back with you in a moment once we have done that. All right, and to get started with our hood here, I have placed a stitch marker about 2 inches down the front. So from where we have the front section, this is the front section, there's our back, and then there's our front. We're looking at the collar from the top. Now what I have done is moved down about, I guess it's about 5 rows from each side, and I placed a stitch marker here on either side, and then I attached my yarn. If you've never done this before, I just insert my hook and drop a loop and then start crocheting from that point. Okay, now I did first all the way around, so from the first stitch marker around the top of the collar and over to the second with a row of single crochet to give myself stitches to crochet actually my pattern into. And now I've done my first row of our blanket stitch we've used for the entire sweater so far. We start out at the end of the first row with, it was over here actually, sorry, start out the beginning of the first row of our pattern with a chain, 2 double crochets into the base of the chain, and then skip 3 stitches and make our cluster in all the way around. Okay, now if you are missing a stitch or 2 at the end, I have showed you guys before, just even it out. So either move your cluster 1 extra stitch forward or backwards depending on what you need to make everything look correct. It will even itself out, so don't worry. And we're going to start increasing here on the next row. So that's why I came back at this point and explained how far we are going. Now I've added a piece of yarn as a marker to the center of this first row, and I just took a spare piece of a contrasting color. I would recommend using a different color yarn from the one for your sweater because if it's too close in color, you'll miss it as you're crocheting around. Okay, so we're going to start working on our next row. We started, the first row here already has its chain stitch, and we have turned our work. So we're going to start increasing for the first couple of times right in the center here. Now I'll include here a screenshot of what I did for my pattern, and you guys can, you know, do that. And then if you actually need a little bit more height, I'll include how to make it taller as well. For this first row, we're going to add just one additional cluster at the center. And then on every opposite row, so every time we work our way back across, we're just going to crochet it normally and even things out, okay? Okay, and now the next one, this is where we are keeping our center. We're going to make our increase here. We're going to make our cluster into one stitch before the normal spot. So do our cluster, which is single, double, double, crochet, and then skip the single crochet that we would normally have crocheted into and work into the next stitch over in the same way. So we're going to add another cluster here, and then by the time we get to the next single crochet, we'll be in the right position again, and then we will go back to normal. Okay, so now we're going to skip our 2 stitches and crochet right into the single crochet as normal. So we've gone from 1 cluster in the middle here to 2 now. That is how we are going to work our increases, and like I said, you guys will see the pattern here on the screen. And every backwards row, so every row where you're working with the inside of the hood facing you, is going to just be a straight row. Okay, so increases happen from the outside of the row. It doesn't really matter. It's gonna you know, texture the same way that the rest of the sweater did. And yeah, we'll be back to show you the finished hood and go ahead and show you how the collar works. All right, and here we are back. This is the height of our hood. All right, so we did some increases in the first few rows just at the corner where the shoulder meets the hood. So we did a few increases in here, and then after that we kept everything completely straight, working our way up to the height of the hood. When you get to the height of the hood, like your full height that you're looking for, I added 2 stitch markers. They do not need to be different. This is just what I was using. And for this child size, I used 3 clusters as my width of the center of the top of the hood here. If you're doing for an adult size, I would recommend doing probably 4 or 5, and you're going to want this section here to be just a little bit wider. So this is an extra ribbed section. So basically what we did at the bottom of each of our panels so far, we added this rib section. So I'm adding that again here, and we worked our 9 stitches between the 2 stitch markers in single crochet across this first row here. 9 rows of single crochet across here. And then we work our back loop single crochets across every row. And when we get to the end of the row, so we're single crocheting across. So single crochet in the back loop like we've done so many times for this sweater so far. Make sure you keep your number of stitches the same all the way across your row. So if you're doing 4 or 5 clusters, you're going to have 12 or 15 stitches on this single crochet row. Because I'm only doing 3 clusters, it's only 9 stitches. So when I get to the end of my 9 stitches, I'm going to slip stitch into right here. So basically this is the end of the hood. We're just going to slip stitch into the first stitch there that we reach. That's sort of in line with our row that we just finished. Then we slip stitch into the next one as our second slip. Now this works as our chain stitch for the beginning of our single crochet row. And then don't single crochet into any of our slip stitches here. So work your way into the first actual single crochet and start your single crochets again across the row, and then continue working like that. Single crochet back loops across, slip stitch into the end, slip stitch into the next stitch just above or beside that, depending on which way you're holding your panel, and then turn and work your way back. Continue working like that. until you reach the end of the row here. When we reach the end of the row, then we're going to begin our edging for the whole sweater. So that's going to be worked along the whole front. See, I've started right here. This is a row of single crochet across the front, and we're going to work at least 5 rows of single crochet in the back loop only. So first row of regular single crochets, and then after that we work back into back loop. And it's going to look like there are edges here at the bottom, and we're going to extend it. We're going to extend it out the front. Oops. And it's going to continue all the way along. When you get to the edge of your collar, just maneuver your collar so it holds its way straight and keep single crocheting around the whole thing. Now that will actually create the right fabric flow, or the way you want your fabric to sit once it's finished. Okay, so that's going to be it. I'm going to come back and I will show you what the single crochet row looks like, and then we'll be done. I still have to sew my sleeves on, but you can go ahead and do that whenever you like. I just didn't want to do it while I was working with the hood. So anyways, that's basically going to be it. Weave in your ends, of course, and let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments as you work through this beautiful sweater. Now, I will also include the size charts that will allow you to make this for a different size person than the 10-year-old that I made mine for. Okay, here's the pattern for the pocket, and then coming up we're going to do the charts again, so you can screenshot if you'd like. And as always, the pattern and tutorial will be included in the blog post, so you can check that out in the description box below. Alright, so here we are at the end of our sweater. It is completely finished, and I have added our hood, which you can see here. And to get the shaping right, I ended up adding this single crochet rib section here just to give us the right shape for the hood, because I didn't want something that was going to be too pointy at the back, here across the back corner. And then I added onto our sleeves, just sewed those on properly. They're a little bit long, and you can see here I have rolled these up. This does fit my daughter with their sleeve rolled up once, and then as she grows it will still fit her for hopefully the whole winter, maybe even a little bit longer, and then my youngest can wear it as well. So unfolded, the sleeve looks like this. And then I folded up the cuff on this one here so you can see, and so it fits her for a little bit longer. A little bit of a quick tip for making sweaters for children. And then finally, after all was said and done, my daughter was cold when she was wearing the sweater yesterday, so she asked me to add some pockets. So there's a couple of squares, which I will also include the sizing for the square for the pockets into each section as we build it. So this is this is 6 chains across to make the rib section here, and then I went across and I'll add the width of it, same as we did for each of the panels for this one. And then I did, I think it was 7 or 8 rows of our blanket stitch. All right, so that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys want to add some buttons, I didn't do that for the sweater, but you can add some buttons by putting in a couple of chain stitches along either side. You just choose where you want those buttons to go and make yourself a buttonhole. Buttonholes, just do 2 chain stitches instead of 2 of our single crochets to fit, or larger if your buttons are bigger than that, but that should work for buttonholes. And then sew your buttons onto the other side here with thread that matches your yarn color. Now we've done this one all in one color. It may also be cute. I haven't actually made it in color block style, but I might have to make that for my youngest because she's already asked me to make one for her. All right, any questions, leave them down in the comments, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.